Have you ever wondered why your teen can focus on video games for hours, but can't seem to focus on homework for 5 minutes? You're not the only one. But what if that hyper-focus on video games isn't necessarily a sign of laziness or avoidance? What if it's actually a window into how your teen's motivation actually works, and how we can start to tap into it? In this video, we will discuss why video games can so easily capture attention, what they teach us about motivation, and finally, how parents can use these same principles to spark motivation beyond the screen. Motivation isn't just about how hard your teen tries or how much willpower they have. It's about what their brain finds rewarding. When something feels rewarding, the brain releases a chemical called dopamine, a neurotransmitter that fuels attention, drive, and pleasure. Sometimes this is called the feel-good hormone, and for good reason. To understand this biologically, we need to look at two key areas of the teen brain: the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system. The prefrontal cortex is the front part of the brain that handles executive functions: planning, prioritizing, delaying gratification, regulating impulses. Those are the brakes of a vehicle, if you will. It's the part that says, I should do my homework even if I don't feel like it. Now, the limbic system, that's the deeper emotional center that responds heavily to dopamine. That is the accelerator of the vehicle. It lights up when something feels exciting, novel, or immediately rewarding. So here's the thing. While the prefrontal cortex is still underdeveloped in teens, on the flip side, the limbic system is hypersensitive to dopamine, which is why teens tend to engage in riskier behaviors. It's like driving a vehicle where the accelerator develops faster than the brakes. And guess what? Video games are designed to press that accelerator. Constant feedback, small wins, visible progress. Every achievement, level up, new costume, a completed mission, gives the brain that tiny burst of dopamine. But school, on the other hand, usually just doesn't offer that same type of immediate feedback or rewards. How can you compete? It's not that your teen cannot focus or they always lack motivation. Rather, motivation just naturally rises when an activity feels meaningful, when they're given some level of autonomy or choice, and when they can see clear, immediate progress. Video games just happen to do all of these three things incredibly well. Let me share something a little personal. I loved video games growing up, especially two genres. One is the RTS genre, real-time strategy. The other is RPG games or role-playing games. If you've never played an RTS, imagine you're playing chess, but instead of taking turns, everything happens in real time. And guess what? You also cannot see the entire board. And I didn't realize this until recently, but these games actually gave me insight to how my brain thinks as an adult. So in the RTS genre, you have to make strategic decisions in real time with incomplete information. You have to allocate your limited attention, your time, and resources simultaneously. And in life, just like these games, I have to make decisions in how I allocate my time, my energy, my money, in a world where each resource is finite. Now let's take RPGs, role-playing games. They taught me something different. In RPGs, usually you create a character, you get to personalize them, choose your own path. But when you start off, you don't have a lot of abilities or powers. But you go on quests, gain experience points, level up, and sometimes the grind is fun. Sometimes it gets a little repetitive. Regardless, you always see progress. Your experience bar fills. You level up and you unlock new abilities. You also have autonomy. You get to choose your character, choose your quests, and how you approach each quest. And finally, each quest gives meaning to the overall narrative or story. And so you eventually see and discover how you, as the main character in this game, fit into this overall narrative. So what is that? That's meaning, autonomy, and progress, all packaged in the world of a video game. It's the same recipe that drives motivation in real life. Now, before I go on, I must pause and say that, of course, not all gaming is healthy. In my personal opinion, I think every family situation is unique, and for some, I don't think video games are necessarily a bad thing on their own. However, for some teens, it can be an unhealthy coping mechanism, a way to escape anxiety, depression, or stressors, especially if it interferes with their sleep, their mood, or maybe even causes them to neglect real-world responsibilities. But that doesn't necessarily mean gaming itself is the problem. In these examples, it could be the symptom. It just means the game is meeting a need that isn't met anywhere else. And so when that happens, the dopamine loop becomes an escape instead of an outlet that is more healthy. So therefore, the key is to understand, what is the game giving them, and how can we find ways to bring that same motivation into life? Now that we understand how motivation works in the world of video games, how can we bring that same energy into everyday life? Well, here's how you can start. Find ways to gamify real life. Gamify means to turn an activity or a task into a game or something resembling a game. Because in video games, your teen has found a world that is meaningful, they're given autonomy to make choices, and every effort yields immediate progress. Real life, on the other hand, often feels slower, and that's okay, but we can still borrow what works. So the goal isn't to turn every aspect into one big game of life, but rather to gamify small parts of it, adding the same elements that naturally spark motivation in their brain: meaning, autonomy, and progress. Meaning is the why behind what they do. If a task feels pointless, brains tunes out. Help your teen connect the dots. For example, you're working on presenting for your science project, and guess what? The skill of communication is very important, and that's what the YouTubers you admire, that's a skill they have, and that's what you're working on right now. So when they see purpose, dopamine follows. Autonomy is the sense of choice. Even small choices can fuel motivation. For example, do you want to work on your schoolwork before or after dinner? Or even more broadly, what's your plan for tackling homework this week? Same task, but now they have ownership. Progress is visible growth. In games, every action earns experience points, where in real life, we often don't have the same immediate feedback loop. So help your teen see their wins. A completed checklist, short-term goals, maybe even a quick message. Hey, I noticed you started your homework today without reminders. Great job. And guess what? That feedback loop matters more than we realize. So those three pieces, meaning, autonomy, progress, they trigger the same dopamine drive that makes video games so engaging. And when life begins to offer the same signals, the brain begins to associate effort with reward. And that's when motivation starts to feel less like something you have to force and more like something that slowly begins to flow on its own. I hope you found this video helpful. And if so, you may also enjoy this other video on the screen, which actually builds on what we talked about today. So stay hopeful, stay connected, and just know that all the hard work you're doing is making a difference. Take care.